Welcome in, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. So let's begin with this. A face-to-face meeting between President-elect Donald Trump and Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. So we know Amazon will write $1 million check to the President-elect's inaugural fund. Amazon will also stream that ceremony, which equates to a value of another $1 million. So for Trump, it appears it is tech talk time. Just look at the list of CEOs who are either shelling out big money or meeting with Trump in person, or both. We're talking about CEOs from TikTok, Google, Apple, Netflix, and more. So let's bring in CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, what's in it specifically for Jeff Bezos in this meeting?
Hey, Reed, good to see you. Well, times have certainly changed. If you think over the past 8 years or so, these are two men who have had some very, very harsh words for one another, and we are in a different era right now. If you remember, Jeff Bezos, obviously the founder of Amazon, but also owns the Washington Post, and Trump had been critical of Bezos for both of those companies. But right now we're seeing CEOs, especially from the tech industry, flock to Palm Beach, where we are, to visit with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, really focused on deregulations of all sorts. And so here you have business leaders coming to meet with the president-elect and trying to essentially get on good footing and try to potentially, the question is, influence policy coming out of the next administration. It's significant, too, because of obviously Bezos' ties to the Washington Post as owner comes after Trump has launched not only criticisms of the media, but is going after the media as well. He just settled a $15 million lawsuit, or ABC just settled a $15 million lawsuit. And just yesterday, Trump announced that he filed a lawsuit against Ann Selzer, the pollster of the Des Moines Register.
Let's talk about another thing, an appointment. Hershel Walker, Trump just tapped him to be U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. What's behind that?
That's right. As you remember, Hershel Walker ran for Senate in Georgia, lost that seat, and that loss helped Democrats win control of the Senate in that year. A couple of years ago, he was plagued by controversy in that run, but he has also always been a close ally of the president-elect now. And so this is an appointment that, those controversies surrounding him, are kind of in the rear view as far as Trump is concerned. Another example of Trump appointing close allies, some family members even, to positions that involve U.S. ambassadorships.
When you were talking earlier about us being in a new era, that also begs another question. President-elect Donald Trump saying he will go after his enemies, specifically calling out former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Is this the first sign that he may take legal action there against her?
Yeah, in a very early morning Truth Social post announcing that. Just a little bit of context for you about why he's talking about her now. There was a report put out by some Republicans in the House yesterday talking about and urging, action against Liz Cheney for her role in that January 6th committee. So this is kind of in a response to that. But you're right, kind of the broader context is that on the campaign trail, Trump talked often about going after his enemies. Now, again, I mentioned that lawsuit against the Des Moines Register. There is some follow through on those threats here, and so it remains to be seen, what he could actually do. But we also know that as he has announced his picks to run the Justice Department and the FBI, that is kind of hovering over all of this.
Hovering over us. All right, so this just in. Sources tell CBS News that the House Ethics Committee voted to release that Matt Gaetz report that so many people wondered if it would ever see the light of day. Tell us about that, and has there really been any comment from the president-elect on Matt Gaetz's political future? We knew that when Gaetz pulled himself out of consideration, the president-elect seemed to point to a political future yet to be had for Matt Gaetz.
That's right. Well, some news coming out of CBS News are Margaret Brennan and Michael Kaplan report that there were actually 2 Republicans on that committee who voted to release it. Now, if you remember, kind of the context around all of this was when Matt Gaetz was still the nominee for, or the selection for, Attorney General, there were questions about whether the House Ethics Committee would release that report, that investigation. You had House Speaker Mike Johnson essentially saying that he didn't want that report to be released because Gaetz was no longer a member of Congress. He's still not a member of Congress. He resigned that seat. But here you have even Republicans on that committee voting to release its contents, even though Gates is no longer up for selection in this administration. But this really speaks to the idea that there is no love lost between Gates and some of his colleagues on Capitol Hill, especially Republicans. We have not heard from the president-elect on all of this. When Gates withdrew his selection to be Attorney General, the president-elect has been still very supportive of him. So we'll wait to see whether he comments on this.
All right, fascinating times and a new era for sure. Thank you so much for joining us today.